So I hope that you are ready to take those charm packs that have been aging like fine wine in your stash and get them into some quilts for your friends, family, and yourself. So I am Cheryl Brickey of Meadow Mist Designs, and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about my new book, Just One Charm Pack Quilts, that comes out in late June through Stash Publications. So Just One Charm Pack Quilt is just like the name implies. It takes one charm pack and it combines it with an additional fabric called Fabric A in the patterns and a background fabric to go and stretch that charm pack like a hamburger helper to make an entire quilt. So grab all of your old charm packs. This one is a marmalade. I think that this one is probably half a decade old. It's time for it to not sit on your shelf anymore and get it into a real quilt. So today I'm going to be telling you guys about how to make your own charm packs or how to expand on fabrics you already have. So if you don't have a charm pack, or you don't know if you want to go and use your stash or your scraps, you can very easily go and create your own selection of fabrics called, create your own charm pack to use in these quilt patterns. So let's get stash busting, and I'm going to show you my favorite ways of creating charm packs. So if you like to make a quilt from the book but you don't have a charm pack, or you have a large stash and you want to use up some of your existing fabrics or scraps, you can very easily create your own charm pack for the quilts in the book. And I'm going to show you that right now. This is one example. This is Magic Carpet that I made and Carol Alperin quilted. And to start creating this charm pack with all these different colors, my favorite way to do that is to start with an inspiration fabric. So for this quilt, my inspiration fabric was this Waterfront Park by Violet Craft. And I just loved the colors in it. I loved the whites and the peaches and the oranges and all of that. So using this as my inspiration, I pulled prints from my stash and some scraps that kind of pulled all of these different colors in various ways. And if you have a problem seeing what kind of colors, if it's a busier print, a lot of times the salvage will have little spots of color. And these ones will show you all the different colors that are in the quilt, in the fabric, excuse me. So for this one, I just started pulling fabrics, some solids, some tone on tone. These blender fabrics are wonderful. All sorts of different colors, different prints to pull from the fabric. And you can see that these don't exactly match. And that is okay. Having this variety in here is going to go and make your quilt top more interesting and more like a charm pack. And then I did the same with the kind of the blues and the turquoises. And I typically will cut 1 to 2 charm squares from each fabric. So that way I know that I have a lot of variety in my quilt top. Now with these, I wound up cutting a few more than I needed, and I edited out. I had a couple that wound up being a little too dark or a little too busy. And then once I had these, you can see I did not pick the navy here because I said, okay, I'm going to need to have a light and a dark to go and offset these prints in the fabric, in the actual quilt. So I pulled the white from the print and then this navy. And that allowed me to create Magic Carpet. So these were all kind of mid-tones. And they're next to the white, which would be Fabric A in the quilt. And they're also next to the navy. Let me show you that. So here is the quilt again. Here are all the different charm prints. The white is the Fabric A. And the navy is the background. And so the prints stand out well against both the navy and they stand out well next to the white. And there's good contrast between all three of those. So that's one of my favorite ways of creating an interesting charm pack, especially some interesting color combinations that you might not have thought of. you can also simply go and pick out a color and pull prints and solids from that color. So in this case, this was actually one of the first quilts I made for the book. This is called One-Eyed Monster. And I just love greens and blues. So I pulled a whole bunch of greens and blues, even going into that kind of limey, kind of neon green. And I offset them on a white. And then this fabric A is this little black, the black squares, the little eyeballs, if you will. So for this one, I just went by color. You can create a charm pack to use for a quilt of all sorts of different pinks or reds or blacks, all sorts of different things. You don't have to go and have all sorts of different colors. It can be more monochromatic and simpler. Now, last example is Cat's Eye. And we looked at this quilt when we were talking about the fabric A and the background. And in this quilt, I started, Valerie made this quilt, but I picked out the fabrics and I started with a number of Maureen Cracknell's fabrics for Art Gallery. I had about 7 or 8 of them, and I loved all the different colors. I didn't have enough variety to put into a quilt. So what I did was I pulled inspiration from that and I built out my charm pack. So for here, Maureen has this beautiful mustard in some of her prints, and so I pulled some mustard. I loved the purples that she used, so I pulled in some additional purples. So all other sorts of fabric manufacturers and different things show up in this quilt that I started with about 7 or 8 and I expanded. And this is also a great tip that if you do have a charm pack that you have to leave out a number of the prints, say there are a lot of white on whites and you want to use a white background, if you get rid of them and you are short, you can very easily go into your stash and pull some additional fabrics that just play. They don't have to match exactly, but they play nicely. And solids are always a great bet if you need to go and add some more in there to pull from the fabrics. So I hope that you are inspired and looking at your stash a little bit differently, seeing all the different possibilities for color combination inspiration and all of the different fabrics that you can go and use and get them off your shelves and into a quilt. So thank you so much.